Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for a deep dive? Today we're tackling lean manufacturing. And before you click away thinking, that's not for me, trust me on this one.
It's really fascinating, actually, how applicable these principles are, even if you're not running a factory.
Right. We're basing this deep dive on an article from Tech Target, by the way, called What is Lean Manufacturing? But the cool stuff, at least to me, is how many fields have taken these ideas and run with them.
It's true, and some of the names using these principles might surprise you.
Seriously. Okay, so for anyone who's totally new to this whole lean thing,
Yeah, let's break it
what
down.
are we actually talking about when we say lean manufacturing?
At its absolute core, it's about doing more with less, minimizing waste, but without sacrificing productivity. Actually, the goal is to boost productivity by cutting out the waste.
Okay, so when we say waste here, I'm guessing it's not just like literal garbage.
Exactly. It's broader than that. Think of it as anything the customer doesn't value. If they wouldn't pay for it, it's probably waste in some form.
So like an overpriced coffee maker that has a zillion settings nobody uses. That'd be a prime
You
example.
got it. All that complexity. But is it really making the coffee better, or is it just dot waste?
Okay, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So how did this whole lean idea get started? Was it always about any industry or?
It actually has roots in, believe it or not, the Toyota production system.
No way, really. Cars?
Yep. Post-World War II, Japan needed to rebuild, resources were tight, so Toyota developed this incredibly efficient system all about, you guessed it, eliminating waste.
Wow. So from rebuilding after the war to, well, now it feels like everything's gone lean if you're doing things right.
Right, and a big part of that was this book, The Machine That Changed the World. It took those Toyota principles and showed how they could apply to pretty much anything, not just making cars.
So that's when it really took off.
That's amazing how a book can do that.
It really is. And, at the heart of all this are the 5 core principles of a lean system,
Yeah.
kind of like the foundation that everything else is built on. They're laid out really well in the book, Lean Thinking. Ooh, 5 core principles. I like it. Lay them on us. What are they?
All right, so we've got value, value stream, flow, pull, and perfection.
Okay, before we get too deep into each one, can you give us a quick rundown of what they mean in practice? Like, starting with value, that seems like a good place to start.
It really is, because value in lean is all about seeing things through the customer's eyes. What do they find valuable? What are they actually willing to pay for? That's where you start.
Not just what we think is cool or important, right?
Right.
It's about what the customer actually needs and wants.
Exactly. It's about understanding that customer perspective, and then we can move on to the value stream.
Okay, so tell me more about this value stream. What is it and how does it connect to getting rid of waste?
So the value stream is basically every single step involved in getting that product or even a service from its very beginning, the idea phase, all the way to the customer's hands.
Okay, so like mapping out the entire journey.
Exactly. And then once you've got that whole picture, you look for any steps that don't actually add value. Those are ripe for elimination.
Got to streamline, get rid of those detours or anything that's just slowing things down.
Right. And then that takes us to the next principle, flow. Once you've got the essential steps, it's about making them smooth, no bottlenecks, no interruptions.
Like traffic, right? Traffic's flowing, everything's good.
Yeah,
But as soon as there's a jam,
exactly. And just like in traffic, we want to avoid those pileups. And that's where pull comes in.
pull.
Okay,
You're going to have to explain this one.
think of it this way. In a pull system, work only starts when there's a demand for it. It's not like you're just churning stuff out, hoping someone will buy it.
Okay, so you're not like baking 100 pies just in case someone might want one.
Yeah.
You wait for the order.
Exactly. A restaurant's a good example. They don't pre-make every dish. They wait for you to order. That's the pull.
Man, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
No waste from overproducing. You're only using resources when you actually need to. Smart.
Right. And then finally, we have the principle of perfection. Now I know what you're thinking.
Then nobody's perfect, right?
Exactly. It's not about being flawless, but it is about this constant striving for improvement, always getting better.
Always moving forward. So it's more about the journey than actually reaching some kind of perfect end point.
Yeah, exactly. It's never done. It's this constant looking for ways to eliminate waste, up the quality, become even more efficient.
Now, that is a kind of perfection I can get behind. It's so interesting how this ties into that whole idea of Kaizen, continuous improvement. But anyway, sorry, interrupt.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that dedication to always improving, that's what really sets lean apart. It's not a one-time fix, it's ongoing.
Love it. Okay, so we've got these 5 principles: value, value stream, flow, pull, and perfection.
Hmm.
But we've also talked about waste, and I know there are like specific types of waste that people who use lean are always on the lookout for.
You're right, there are. The Toyota production system, where all this came from, they identified 7 main types of waste. They call it muda, which I think is Japanese for like futility or wastefulness.
Muda. Okay, so what are these 7 sneaky culprits we need to watch out for?
All right, so first up, we've got transportation waste.
Sounds pretty self-explanatory, but what does it mean in practice?
So it's anytime you're moving materials, products, even information further than you actually need to. Like imagine a factory where parts have to travel a huge distance between each step of the process. That's wasted transportation.
Makes sense. Got to optimize that flow. What's next?
Okay, so next up is inventory waste.
Oh boy, I can already see where this is going. Holding on to way too much stuff.
You got it. It's any supply or material you've got that's not actively being used. Just sitting there in a warehouse or something, taking up space, costing money. That's inventory waste.
Yeah, got to find that balance, right? Enough to meet demand, but not so much you're just hoarding.
Exactly. Then we've got motion waste.
Motion. Okay, now I'm really curious. What counts as wasted motion?
So this is about any unnecessary movement of people or equipment. Like say you've got a worker who has to constantly reach for a tool that's way over there, not within easy reach. That's motion waste.
It's like ergonomic design, but for your entire workflow, right?
Exactly. Make things flow, minimize wasted movement. And speaking of things that don't flow, we have waiting waste.
Waiting is the worst. Tell me this isn't about actual people just standing around, though.
Well, it can be, but it's also anytime there's a delay in a process, whatever the reason, like waiting for approval on something, waiting for a machine to be repaired, products just sitting around waiting to be shipped, it all adds up.
Time is money, as they say. Or even if it's not money, it's wasted potential. Okay, what else?
Let's talk about overproduction waste.
Making too much stuff, I'm guessing?
More than you need, faster than you need it, or even just before you need it. It's a recipe for waste.
I feel like my grandma had a saying about this. It's something like, haste makes waste, right?
Something like that. And then we have overprocessing waste.
Overprocessing. Okay, break this one down for me.
It's basically doing more to a product or service than is actually necessary. Adding features customers don't need. Using a super complicated process when a simpler one would work just fine. You get the idea.
It's like, you can definitely have too much of a good thing, even when it comes to quality or whatever.
You got it. Find the balance.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, we have defects waste.
Okay, that one at least sounds pretty straightforward. Making mistakes, I assume?
Yep. Any error, mistake, anything that requires rework or fixing, that's defects waste. And it's not just the wasted material, it's the wasted time, effort, all of it.
Right, get it right the first time, or at least have systems in place so those errors are less likely to happen in the first place.
Exactly. So there you have it, the 7 wastes. And here's the thing, they can apply to so much more than just a factory setting.
Oh, absolutely. I can already think of a few of these I deal with in my own life. But hold on, I read somewhere that there's actually an 8th type of waste.
You're right, there is. The often overlooked 8th waste. The waste of unused talent.
Ooh, interesting. I like that one. What does it mean in practice?
It's about not fully utilizing the skills, knowledge, and creativity of the people you have.
Oh, like not giving your team the chance to shine, to contribute their best work.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to identify problems, suggest improvements, really be a part of the solution.
So it's not just about making processes more efficient. It's about creating a culture where people feel valued, heard, and encouraged to contribute their ideas.
Absolutely. When you don't tap into the full potential of your team, you're wasting so much more than just time or resources. You're wasting talent. And that can have a huge impact on innovation and morale.
Okay, so we've got our 5 principles and our 8 wastes. But how do we actually use all this? Are there like concrete tools or techniques people can use to put these ideas into practice?
Oh, absolutely. Lean thinking is chock full of practical tools and techniques. We could spend a whole other deep dive just talking about them.
Oh, I bet. But for now, can you give us a sneak peek? Like, what are a couple that our listeners might find really helpful?
Okay, how about we start with Kanban?
Kanban. Okay, I've definitely heard that one before, but I'm not sure I totally get it. What is it?
So Kanban, it's basically a visual system for managing your work. Workflow, really.
Okay, so like, what, charts and graphs and stuff?
Kind of. More like imagine a board. right?
Huh.
And every task, every piece of work, it's up there on the board for everyone to see.
Oh, so you can literally see what needs to be done, who's doing what.
Exactly. And where the bottlenecks are, if things are getting stuck, it's all right there in front of you.
That's cool. So is it mostly for, like, teams?
Hmm.
Or can you use it for yourself, too?
Honestly, that's the best part. Kanban is super versatile. You could be managing a software project, planning a marketing campaign. Heck, I've even seen people use it for their personal to-do lists.
No kidding. I might have to try that. Okay, so that's Kanban. What other lean tools should we put on people's radar?
Let's see. Oh, this one's fun. Pokeyoke, it's Japanese.
Pokeyoke. I've definitely never heard that one before. What does it mean?
It means mistake proofing.
Mistake proofing. Okay, now I need an example.
Think about it. Have you ever noticed how, like, a USB port, you can only plug it in one way?
Oh, right. It's like the design itself prevents you from messing it up.
Exactly. That's Pokeyoke in action.
So it's not just for physical stuff then, is it? Could you use that in like a workflow too?
You absolutely can. It's about designing things, whether it's a product or a process, in a way that makes it harder to make mistakes, really to prevent errors from happening in the first place.
That's brilliant. I love that idea. Okay, before we wrap things up here, I know a lot of people listening are probably thinking about this other big process improvement methodology, Six Sigma. How does Lean stack up against Six Sigma? Are they friends? Enemies?
That's a great question. I'd say they're more like allies, but with different strengths.
Okay, so tell me more about those strengths. How are they different?
So lean is really all about eliminating unnecessary steps in a process. It's like if you've got a cluttered hallway, lean is about clearing out the junk so you can move through smoothly. Six Sigma, on the other hand, it's more about reducing variation, getting rid of those defects in a process.
So if Lean is about streamlining, Six Sigma is about making sure that streamlined process is like perfectly tuned.
That's a great way to put it. And you know, the cool thing is they can work really well together. Lean Six Sigma is a thing, and it's becoming more and more popular.
Best of both worlds.
Oh.
Man, this has been so interesting. Okay, before we let our listeners go back to their hopefully very lean and efficient lives, what are the key takeaways here?
Well, I think the biggest thing is lean isn't just about making widgets faster or whatever. It's really a whole philosophy.
Right, it's about understanding what the customer values and cutting out the rest. No more bells and whistles just because.
Exactly. And then using those five principles, value stream, flow, pull, perfection, to guide your decisions.
Oh, and don't forget those 8 wastes. Always be on the lookout for those sneaky culprits, whether it's unused inventory or, my personal favorite, untapped talent.
Absolutely. And the best part is you can apply this stuff anywhere. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, even in your personal life, lean thinking can make a big difference.
So true. It's all about constantly striving to improve, right?
Exactly. Kaizen, that continuous improvement.
Love it. Okay, listeners, here's something to think about. Where can you spot some muda in your own work or life? What could be streamlined? What could be done better? How can you tap into a little lean thinking to make your own machine run a little smoother?
I think you'd be surprised what you might find.
Me too. This has been fantastic. As always, a huge thank you to you for joining us and sharing your expertise. And to all our listeners, we'll catch you on the next deep dive.